everybody, welcome to the Comic Game Movie Show. My name is Deshaun, and today I'm here to give you my review of Raya and the Last Dragon. Now, Raya and the Last Dragon is the latest, biggest Disney animation production. Now, Disney Animation and Pixar are separate, as I've mentioned many times on here before, but Disney Animation is the only one who gives Pixar any real competition in the animation department, because Disney Animation is responsible for both Frozen and Moana, and those two movies were very big, including especially Frozen. Frozen was in fact the first billion-dollar animated film of all time. I believe at the time Frozen was the highest grossing animated film ever, and Frozen 2 came out and made over $1 billion as well. Moana was a huge smash hit, one of the most successful, animation movies that of all time. So, Disney Animation has a reputation to be on the top of their game. They're right there with Pixar. It's unfair that Disney literally owns the two biggest animation studios on the planet. It's probably why they closed down Blue Sky Studios, because they're like, why the hell do we need them when we have these two? And this movie is an indicator of why things are going good. That, like to put this in perspective, how Disney is balling. Soul was my #1 movie. Absolutely love Soul. That movie has a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes. Fresh as a daisy. I mean, it is fresh. That's a fucking tomato. This movie, Raya, has the same exact score as it, and it has a higher audience score. So that should just tell you where Disney is. The last two movies that Disney has released are in the 90s. The last three things Disney has released, if you count WandaVision, are in the 90s. They're not fucking around. Disney is not fucking around. If you ever wondered why they are where they are, shit like this movie, Raya and the Last Dragon, is another example of a fantastically executed movie. It's a hero's journey movie for sure, and I'm gonna get my one complaint out the way. It's a traditional hero's journey. There aren't too many massive twists. It's not predictable per se, but you know kind of where the end is going to be. If you've seen the trailer, you kind of know the kind of people she's gonna meet. And like I said, it's a hero's journey, but it's about the journey, and it's about the characters, and all the characters in this are well written and well developed and interesting. All of them are, especially the main character Raya, voiced by I think her name's Mary. I want to get the names right this time. Kelly Marie Tran, aka Rose from ironically Rose from Star Wars. Now she's great in this as Raya. Like, she's believable. You believe her in the beginning of it when she has faith in people. But you got characters like her. You got you obviously got the dragon played by Aquafina. You got Gemma Chan in this as her rival. Her dad played by Daniel Day Kim. Benedict Wong's in this in a fun role. There's a lot of characters in this, and a lot of fun things in this. But the story is about this land, and like this is like a fictional version of South Asia, and it used to be called, like, I think Penundra or something like that. It was something like Penundra. I can't remember the exact name of what the place used to be called. But it used to be called like Penundra or something like that. I can't remember the specific name. I wish I could remember it off the top of my head, but whatever it was called like Fantasy World Kamanda. Oh yeah, here it is. Kamundra. It used to be called Kamundra, and the lands used to be united in harmony, and these dragons, all these super colorful dragons brought different elements and different aspects to the world, and like they were like basically kind of godlike beings, but they lived in harmony. And then all of a sudden these weird purple mist creatures started to show up that were apparently like created by man by accident, sort of. But anywho, that's a whole discussion for another time. I don't really want to get too much into that. And they show up and they start turning man and dragon into stone. And the dragons and a last-ditch effort came together to form this crystal that banished all these creatures away and freed all the humans. But for some reason, all of the dragons were still in stone. And of course, humans, being humans, the first thing they thought to do were fight over the fucking stone. all of a sudden the nations were created. These four fucking tribes were created, and they all live their own way. They all feel differently about how things should go. And meanwhile, Raya's tribe, the Heart, I believe is what they're called. They're the protectors of the stone, and and her father wants to bring harmony back. Her father wants to bring, he thinks that they can all come back together and be the nation that they used to be, the nation that they used to be, if they just let go of all these past biases and whatnot and try to make it work together. Of course, things don't quite go as they want it to be. Raya gets tricked by the girl who'd be going to become a rival, and the stone is broken, and the creatures are back out in the world, turning people to stone. And the only thing that can stop these creatures are water, and if you have a piece of the stone that was cracked open. And Raya, it took Raya 6 years. It skipped 6 years later. Raya's older. Her little companion Tuk Tuk, who was once like a little shell creature, is now a massive shell creature who she can ride and she finds the dragon Sisu, and Sisu is the last dragon. And Sisu herself has doubts about her power as well, because she feels like she didn't come up with because it turns out that Sisu did not come up with the plan to make that actual orb that killed all of the that got rid of all of those weird purple creatures. It's just that her family trusted her with it to execute the plan, and she did. So now Raya must go around finding the rest of the other 3 pieces of the stone, and save her father, who is now turned to stone at the beginning of the movie, and save the land, and hopefully maybe bring the land together like her father dreamed. And like I said, it's a hero's journey. Raya is a hero who was she made a mistake a long time ago, and she blames herself for the events that happened. So she's not as open to people anymore, because she feels like, she tried to see things her father way, which her father really wanted to, thought that everyone could be united and things could be peaceful. But since the thing happened to her dad, she really has been kept off. The thing about this movie, too, is the action sequences are awesome. It's really hard hitting stuff. Like, honestly, if they wanted to, they could have leaned into it a little bit more. Honestly, I kind of found myself like, one aspect that I do wish they played up more was the Indiana Jones aspects of it, was the cool action aspects of it. And because I thought they were going to lean into it a little bit more. I still had a great time with the movie, but I thought they should have and could have lent into the action a little bit more, especially since there are actual sequences where you think it's going to lead to an action sequence and they avoid it, and they kind of avoid the action sequence altogether. So that was a bit like, okay, I'm still enjoying myself, but you could do more with but you could do more of this if you wanted to. There's a lot of hilarious characters. Obviously, Benedict Wong as Tong is a funny character. He's this typical tough, I'm hard-nosed guy who, underneath all of his, hard-ass, exterior, he's actually a soft and a kind-hearted man underneath it all. There's the wise talking, fast talking, this kid who owns a shrimp, who runs a shrimp shack, or like a shrimp, I don't know, like a shrimp boat. And of course there is a baby. There's a baby with 3 monkeys. The baby's awesome. That baby's a slick baby, the con baby. Baby's hilarious. The baby's funny. Love the baby. The baby's great. And her and the monkeys, they work great together. And she has a rival who she feels betrayed by, who they have a current, who you kind of see where it's going, but you see that it's like there is no real black and white. There really isn't even a villain to this. Really, there's just people. There is just antagonists. There really isn't a villain. If there's a villain, it's these lifeless, these purple mist thing that's going around turning people into stone. Though they're a metaphor. Though they're not really villains. They're like, metaphorical. Like I believe they're like, as far as I can tell, they're the distrust, and they're everything negative that human beings have about them. Like they're all the negatives of man manifested into these beings that are just these lifeless beings that just float around turning people into stone. So like they're not really villains per se, such as they're just a response response to like a response to the human problem. And the antagonist herself isn't really that antagonistic. I mean, she is, because she feels like she's better than Raya and feels like she deserves whatever she's getting more than Raya. But in the end of the day, it's just a perspective thing. You know how she feels at the beginning of the movie when you see them together. And like I said, I enjoyed their aspects of them, and I enjoyed and Sisu is a good character. Aquafina is really funny in this. I loved a lot of her stuff she had to say. I love the message of the movie. The message of the movie was very timely about everyone coming together, you know, about putting your differences aside, about putting this aside for the betterment of the whole, about basically about you know, look, you can have all the differences you want, but you're not gonna fuck the whole inside of the, you know, but we are stronger together, and we should come together and put our differences aside to do the best we can do, to be the best we can be together. And there's a lot of great messages in there, and it definitely at the tail end of the movie. Raya and the Last Dragon does not revolutionize the wheel. It's not as good as Soul, I would say. It's not as good as Soul. It's not as good as Toy Story 4. But as far as I'm concerned, it's a damn good animated movie. Its animation is beautiful. The world building, the world design is amazingly beautiful. And in fact, I'd probably go as far as to say, out of all the latest Disney and Pixar films, this is the one that has the most, maybe not sequel potential. I don't know if I'll go as far as sequel, because it did end on a pretty good note. But the world itself is so interesting. This is the one that could definitely, you can make a video game out of it. Especially if you can make an open world video game out of this. Especially if you want to play up like what Raya had been up to for the 6 years that everyone was, you know, turning into stone. You definitely could do something with that. I think you can make an open world video game about this. Because I think that world, and especially with them divided, there's a lot to play with there. There's a lot to play with there. There's a lot to do there, you know, like I feel like, and especially with Raya's cool ass sword that like spreads apart, that's like fucking like a whip kind of thing. It was a really cool sword with the sword and the action and whatnot. I do think you could actually make a nice open world game out of this. It's the most open world, you know, because out of all the other movies, I'd say Onward has a lot of good sequel potential. There's sequel potential to Raya too, because most movies by Disney are whatnot. I'm like, oh, okay, that's pretty much the end of it. But if you wanted to make a sequel to Raya, I would not be against it. I think you could do that. There's a lot of directions you can go with it, especially the world. Just because everyone's decided to come together doesn't mean someone's not going to take advantage of everyone being together, you know. And there could easily be a plot line with a dragon who is bad, because you gotta imagine there has to be a bad dragon. There has to be a dragon who isn't down with the fucking what's going on here. So there's many ways to play it up. I just would love to see the world again. It's a very diverse world. Each area looks so unique. It's so well animated. I would love to see a sequel to this. I really would. I would love to see a sequel. I'd love to see an open world game that takes place in the beginning when you maybe get to play as Raya, like maybe like 3 years after the events, like a couple years before the events of the movie, but like a couple years after the events of the beginning of the movie, and you get to like, you know, go around skulking around trying to figure out what's going on, and you know, trying to figure out stuff. You know, there's all kinds of things that you can do, and you know, and it sets it up because at the beginning of the movie they set up that she stole the map, the dragon map, which would be kind of cool, because then it'd be like, oh cool, how'd she steal that dragon map? And you know, you can do a whole fucking like, because I played a long time ago, I played Kung Fu Panda tie-ins, and the tie-in video games to a lot of those movies used to just be like a subplot that wasn't explained. Like the whole Kung Fu Panda 2 one video game is all about Po learning the Wuxi fingerhold. Literally, at the end of the game, that's what you do. You learn the Wuxi fingerhold. Like you discover that somehow, some way, before the events, you know, while Po was hanging out, while Po was training with Shifu wasn't with him all the time, and Po wandered off and figured out the Wuxi fingerhold, and that's what you do. And in that, you know, and that's like the ending. And I think you gotta do something like that with Raya, where you could just have this nice gap of time where she's on her own in this area, or she's the only, you know, member left of her clan. People don't know how they feel about her. She's got the sword. She's learning to use the sword. Took growing. You know, you can really play that up and have a lot of fun with that, of her going around doing things if you want to. Like, I think there's a lot of potential in this franchise just because of the diversity of the world and how big it is, more than other franchises that are are really self-contained, and it's just like, well, there's not much you can do after that, and there's not much reason to tell a story after that. This, on the other hand, I think this has like Kung Fu Panda, like open world quality to it. And honestly, I didn't know Kung Fu Panda had that much open world quality until like when I was younger. I saw like the TV show that went into details about the world. I was like, this has a lot of open world potential. Anyways, thank you guys for joining the Comic Game Movie Show. Please remember to like and subscribe. I would give Raya and the Last Dragon a 9 out of 10. I enjoyed myself greatly. Seth enjoyed himself greatly. It was great to get out to go. I went to the movies to see this. It was really good to get out and go see something at the movie theaters. I have missed that experience so much. So thank you guys for joining the Comic Game Movie Show once again, and I will see you in the next one. Remember to like and subscribe. And go check out Raya and the Last Dragon. If you don't want to go out to the movie theaters, check it out on Disney Plus, $30. I'd probably go to the movie theaters. It's a lot cheaper. Thank you. I'll see you in the next one.